Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being on my show today. I'm Armando F. Sanchez. I'm the CEO of Armando F. Sanchez Production. I'm trying to adjust everything here because I'm really excited about today's show. This show brings me back to my childhood days. You know, it really does. It spurs a lot of memories about my years reading comic books. When I lived in Mexico, when I lived in the United States, I would read a lot of different kinds and different genres. And today we have someone who is also in this world of comic books in the present, Mexican-American superheroes. I love the topic. We have Fernando Rodriguez, who is the writer, creator, and publisher of Aztec of the City. So we're going to bring him in a few seconds, but let's sort of rattle our own memories. First of all, Mad Magazine. It's one of the comic strips I remember reading a lot when I was a kid. And since I lived in Tijuana, El Calimán, that was another one. And there was a whole series of them. Maybe Fernando can help me remember the one that is La Familia from Mexico City in the comic strip, La Familia Burgos.
Yeah, Memín Penguin is one that a lot of my cousins would read, those really comical ones.
And then Fernando, just to show you that we think of comic books as being entertainment, but Professor now, Francisco Vasquez, we went to college together. He turned me on to another series when him and I were traveling in Mexico, Rios, Los Supermachos. It's a whole series of these. It's just, and they're very informative. They deal with communism, the Catholic Church, food, Marxism. I still have my books. I still keep them. I still read them, and they're in a comic book form. But they're just excellent. I think all textbooks should be like this. It's really awesome. But the show's about you, and I happen to have copies of them, and thanks to you. And the whole idea. So I've had these in my collection. I'm really honored to have them, and I'm really honored to have you on the show. So here we go. Fernando Rodriguez, talk to us about what you're doing right now. And I understand that you're working on a project and you're in the process of crowdfunding right now. So first of all, tell us about the background of this wonderful idea of city comic books, Mexican-American superheroes, Super Chicanos. Why is it important to have these comic strips?
I think it's really important because Mexicans, we are the United States. We're a great part of it. We're a hardworking fabric of that society, and I know that a lot of actors want more people of color on television, on film, and I think it's equally important and vital to have us also in the mainstream comic books. Maybe we haven't worked or the big two, Marvel and DC, haven't included us, at least not through a greater part of the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. So I really think that there's a void there that needs, I grew up with Spider-Man, Captain America, Iron Man, Tony Stark, Peter Parker, and I think that kids these days should be able to grow up with a Tony Avalos, a Tony Torres, peeps that are heroes that kind of represent them,
And I also understand you're also bringing in women into the series, so it's not just a male thing.
In 2004, I did an Adelita comic book, just about Adelita on one side, and you turn the comic book over, and it was La Llorona on the other side. But since then, I've done Águila de Mexico, which is like my Mexican Wonder Woman. She flies. She's a hero. She's featured in the back of number 2, Águila de Mexico. I don't know how good that is, but back of this one. So yeah, I'm trying to there should be girl heroes too, and I've kind of learned through the whole process that I shouldn't never wait for someone else to do something when I can jump right in and get it done myself.
I love that concept. Let's be proactive instead of sitting around waiting for someone to do it for us. The whole idea. So this is part of this show is time sensitive. We wanted to make sure that we got the word out. We're doing this show on May the 21st, 2017. And you're doing a crowdfunding so that you can raise funding so you can do the next series. Tell us about that. We're going to give out the site where people can go and learn more about how to support and sponsor what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm with I'm with Indiegogo. It's Indiegogo Aztec of the City comic books issue number 4. I have a link on Facebook. I have it linked on our comic book Aztec of the City comic books Facebook page. I no longer have a website. I let the website kind of cancel itself out. I didn't have the money to continue paying on the website, but I'm hoping to get it back up. So right now, everything that we have that I do is on Facebook. That's kind of like our website right now.
So again, the page on the Facebook is
Aztec of the City comic books.
Okay, Aztec of the City comic books. And the fundraising. So you said people that are interested in supporting the next version, the next publication, to go where now?
To Indiegogo. Aztec of the City comic books issue number 4.
Okay, and I understand that there's a deadline on this, and that will be June the 16th, 2017. So, please, we invite our viewers to support what you're doing. Why is it important for comic strips, comic books, to be in the hands of kids and adults as well?
I grew up with like I say, I grew up with like the Daredevils, the Avengers, the Iron Mans, and I think that kids today are fortunate that there's someone like me, like Rafael Navarro, who has done Sonambulo. He grew up in Sonora, and he was really into the masked wrestlers. So he has a hero that's a detective, just exactly like Santo or Blue Demon were in those Época de Oro movies of those heroes. And he's doing his part, I'm doing my part, but I think altogether we're actually giving kids that are growing up now something that we never had, which was Mexican superheroes, aside from Calimán.
I don't know how we get a Arab in Mexico. That's a whole different story. That's a whole different genre. What about the idea that as your comic book series is coming out, that it stimulates the mind for other young people to have an artistic talent to say, well, why am I not creating my own? Whatever it may be. It doesn't, yours happens to be los super machos, Chicanos, Latinos, but, that they can also compose their own ideas.
Yeah, actually, when you mentioned that, our friend Javier Hernandez, who is the co-founder along with Ricardo Pardilla of the Comics Expo, which is entering, I think, its 4th year, and they invite all the Latinos and Chicanos that have comic books and they're in the genre to bring their work, and it's really growing every year. But Javier, in the Los Angeles area, he does go to libraries, he does go to elementary schools, and he comic book writing, drawing courses to get generation to, like you just said, to create their own. And it doesn't always have to be a superhero. Los Brothers Hernandez that did Love and Rockets, their comic books deal more with like the everyday situation that Latinos and Mexicans and Chicanos go through. So anything to stimulate the young minds, I think is a really good thing. I think whatever other young creative minds are out there, who knows what potential and what possibilities that they can put together, in fulfilling a dream they have of telling a story or creating another superhero.
Well, like Rios, I want to use him. I mean, this is really a college text, if you will, but he makes it so down to earth. It's almost hilarious. I mean, it is hilarious. It's just comical. But you go through the book, you really listen and learn a great deal from it. So
Yeah.
the message of the power of comic books is quite powerful. It isn't just simply laughter. It can also get many ideas across. And that's what I applaud about your work, because it has that potential to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if someone really broke it down, they could go all the way back to hieroglyphics and also the Aztecs and their narratives that they had of sequential art that tells a story. So I think comic books are really essential in getting young kids to start reading, get them into reading, and reading is knowledge, and knowledge is power.
I read a short clip from somebody. It says, given that all these symbols and that are now on our phone when we text, emojis,
Emojis, yeah.
yeah. Are we going back to hieroglyphics?
Yeah,
I
it's
thought that
kind of
was
like,
humorous.
definitely.
That was humorous. When you see, people interested in what you're doing and your work and all that, how does that make you feel?
I like it. I mean, when I go out to an event and I'm there with other artists like painters that have their work, I am of the complete understanding that not everyone that comes through the area is going to stop at my table, and they're more interested in art. But those that do stop at the table are very passionate about comic books. They love comic books, and they get excited about a Mexican hero, an Aztec of the city, and so that's always very heartwarming to meet people that are equally as excited.
Wait a minute. Help me understand this. Isn't this art?
Yeah, it is, but it's only been recently, like the art world, where there's paintings and abstract, works of art. They don't really consider comic books part of the art world. I think they're starting to come around to it, like especially with Jack Kirby. His original art is really it costs a lot of money if you want an original Kirby, comic book page that he did in black and white. Those are big time collector's items, very hard to get because Marvel kept a lot of his work and he did not retain a lot of his work. And I think that thanks to people like Jack Kirby, also Simon, the creator Bob Kane and Bill Finger that did Batman, I've learned through their what's happened to them is you learn how not to get burned. You learn how to protect your creative rights, and those are equally important because in the end you want to not have someone else water down your work or change it, and the art community is slowly coming around, but they tend to look down on comic book artists.
Yeah, well, a lot of people, I'm sure, look down on DC Comics, and now they're doing movies everywhere. So I don't know. People need to rethink what they're judging now. Now I understand that someone also from the academia side also looked at the idea of comics and its impact. Dr. Frederick Luis Aldama, who's at the Ohio State University. Tell me about his research and I know you participated amongst others, and what was the outcome of all that?
Yeah, Professor Aldama contacted me in 2006. He was working on a book about all the Latino comic book creators that he knew of at the time, and he put together the book "Your Brain on Latino Comics."
Oh wow!
It was with the Texas Press, and it covers like all the 11 of the current Latino comic book creators and publishers. I'm in there in one of the chapters, but the other 10 are equally vital into what they've done and how they've, brought about the consciousness that there are. We're still kind of unknown, but in underground really, but little by little, with continued exposure, even non-Mexicans and non-Chicanos and non-Latinos are seeing that, hey, there's something out there. There's of that's not, you know, the American Captain America type of hero.
Now,
That's representing.
I have more questions about your message that you're trying to get across through your comic strip. But before I do that, one more time, our viewers between today's show, May 21st, 2017, through June 16, 2017, for your crowdfunding ongoing campaign, where can our viewers go and help support?
They can look for the, you know, on Indiegogo. They can definitely go to the Facebook page where they can just click on the link, which will make it easier. But I know that if they searched Indiegogo, they could put in the keywords Aztec of the City comic books issue number 4. Issue number 4 is I did issue number 3 in color, and I've gone back to black and white because color was so very expensive. That I did that is in color. And issue number 4, the hero is in Los Angeles. I introduce the hero to the Brown Berets, and I talk about the history of the Brown Berets and how they came to be, and also cover the at the LA moratorium in the 1970s when you know, the LA Times reporter lost his life along with 5 other people. So I know that with my comic books, I'm always trying to include actual history, you know, with the conquest of Mexico, with Cortez, with Chicanos in California. I haven't touched on the Zoot Suits or anything like that, but I've also kind of started to, with issue number 4 especially, and 5, while I've kind of dealt with some issues that affect all of us as Mexican Americans, I'm going back to what made comic books exciting, and that is to have like really good bad guys. So I've created Las Calaveras de Cortez. There are these skeletons that are still haunting the Aztec hero, and included a Mayan man. His name's Kisin, and Kisin is the Mayan god of death. So I've got a couple new bad guys I'm throwing in.
Let me throw a question at you because it came to mind. You may not have the answer. That's okay, but I'm curious now. When I don't know when the history of Batman and Fantastic Four and those guys came out, but my question is, goes back to that time when it first came out. What do you think the public thought about seeing the comic books about these make-believe stories?
I know that comic books really like went through the roof and through, during the war, World War, when they were being sent to GIs overseas, and you know, they heroes became something that the American people were that needed or were lacking. You know, so Captain America became the symbol of you know, world heroes against Nazi Germany. So it kind of evolved from that, you know, and I know Disney does their more cartoony stuff that is more for the younger generation, which is happier themes, whereas comic book heroes are always dealing with, you know, world dangers and bad guys. What
is there a core message you would say that goes through your comic books, common theme that you see sort of coming in and out that's being woven into the stories?
I just really try to include like a lot of Mexicans, you know, every hero, the detective that is in my stories, he's Mexican or he's Japanese American. I'm trying to infuse the books with Mexican Americans that are everywhere, and yet they're not in comic books. And so the ones that I do have in the comic books, I'm trying to make a lot of them so that they all, because there's a lot of us, you know, we're not just field workers, we're doctors, we're lawyers, we're teachers, and you know, I think comic book heroes and the ones that I've tried to create is just there should be more. There really should, and I can only do so much. But we're everywhere, and I try to make us in the book, like, being like the way we are with like close family ties. The hero and his parents, the hero and his cousins, and Mexicans generally are very family oriented and very well connected with doing positive things.
With familia. So the idea is that I think one point you mentioned a lot of wonderful aspects, but one of them that stood out in my mind, that it's a series that young kids would want to pick up and start reading, start associating, starting a dialogue amongst themselves about the stories line that you're presenting. So to me, anything that helps the kids read more is just to be applauded in what you're doing.
Yeah, Armando, when I started my Aztec of the City Volume 1, the reading level was like elementary school, where every page had about 70 words. And then when I did Volume 2 with Casey Covedo, who lives in Everett, Washington, and he totally did the book with some really nice artwork. I noticed at the comic conventions that my target audience, because that's when I started reading comic books at that age, in today's world, they don't really have any control over their buying power. It's like the parents that pick up the comic book and say, oh my gosh, is there violence? They run through the book. And when I approached my college professor, Rudy Cordova in San Jose, California, I had asked him, hey, did you see my comic book, the new one? And he said, yeah, I didn't like it. And I said, well, what's not to like, man? It's a Mexican-American hero. And he said, well, you have your hero, the Aztec, flying through the air like Superman. You have him talking in English, and if he were a true Aztec, he would be speaking the Nahuatl language. And so I went ahead with Volume 3 is a college level reading. These are the kids that can buy their own comic books, the high school, college level reading students. And I did change everything that the professor talked about. My hero can no longer fly. He doesn't speak because, I don't know how to write Nahua into the comic book, but he wouldn't be able to speak in a modern world. He would be lost, and that's kind of where it's at now.
So it's an evolution to write something like this. I mean, you always have to stay sensitive to the storyline and be able to adapt and be able to change. And I'm sure anyone that does this artwork, earlier we were talking about Lalo Alcaraz, La Cucaracha series. I know he gets a lot of hate mail, a lot of it.
Yeah, man, too much.
I run into him and he says, but you just got to get a thick skin and get past it and keep doing your message out there. So, I applaud how difficult it is to always be getting reviews and getting different perspectives, but you continue on, and I applaud what you're doing. So again, I'm happy as heck to be a collector and have your series also as part of my collection. So
yeah, thank you very much. I always harken back to the scene in La Bamba where Richie Valence's mom tells him, what you need is exposure. And right now, Aztec of the City is still very underground, very low key, because a lot of people don't even know it exists. But I keep forging ahead, knowing that I'll eventually get there, where more people are aware of what it is, where it is, and where to get it.
Well, definitely, you're a Latino role model. You're breaking new ground. You're opening the whole concept of the idea of an industry for Latinos, Chicanos to highlight their own stories and get more kids to be reading as well. So I applaud what you're doing. Again, we're highlighting that this is a crowdfunding also aspect right now at this period of time. Today is May 21st, 2017. There's a deadline until June 16, 2017. So again, where can our viewers go to find out more information about supporting your efforts?
Yeah, they can support the crowdfunding at Indiegogo.com, and they can also find us on Facebook at Aztec of the City Comic Books. People can, it starts at $5, $10, $15, $20, and they can just donate whatever they can afford. And eventually, when it's over, those that have, helped us will receive either one issue, depending on how much they've put in, and they can get the whole set of 1, 2, 3, 4.
Absolutely. Well, you're going to have me also on going to that site as well. So, Fernando, there's so much I want to ask you because you're part of the literary world. I know people think of it as comic, but I think of it as literary. The idea that our first Bibles were more pictures. The reason for the pictures, whether it be the Sistine Chapel or whether it be anywhere else, was to give people who cannot read an image so that they could understand. This doesn't go that far back, but it's the whole idea that we're really not that far away where pictures and words still has a major impact on our development, on our memories, on our perspective. As we were sharing my view of Mad Magazine or Los Supermachos, Rio's books, and your work as well. You have the power to influence us and to influence the future generations. And what I really think is really fantastic is that we have a lot of artistic children who could start writing their own illustrations.
Yeah. It's unlimited what children can do when they're exposed to the things that lead them in their creative direction. One thing I want to mention is I was approached, I want to say a year ago, by the actress Elpidia Carrillo, who had wanted to check out the comic books. And then after she received them, she had asked me to write a script about 4 Purepecha Azteca heroes that are women. So her story that I wrote is about Itzachihuatl, the sleeping woman, the Aztec princess, Herendira, which is also the Purepecha princess in the state of Michoacan, Adelita, and La Malinche. And so I had to read a couple of books about La Malinche because she's so prominent in Mexican culture, and yet there's very little written about her. And this film that Elpidia Carrillo wants to put together, she's looking towards the funding right now and getting a group together, is a comic book action movie about 4 Mexican heroes, 4 Latina, not even Latina, they're Mexican, and it's in Mexico, and it's going to be a Spanish language film, and I'm really looking forward to that process. And I would hope that when the film is done, that too gives a broader exposure to the heroes that Mexico has had and that are a part of our history and our culture.
I love what you're doing. I love that you're not limited by border, that them and us or this place, that the stories, as Joseph Campbell would say, the mythology, fits on both sides of the border, whether you say it in English or in Spanish, but the mythology and the strength of mythology is still there. So, I really thank you for what you're doing. And I know it's difficult and I know you're always challenged, but, I admire what you're doing because nunca te rindes.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
One more time. We're going to give out the address. Crowdfunding right now is May 21st. Please go to the site before June 16, 2017. Again, Fernando, please give us the site.
Indiegogo, I think it's indiegogo.org. Aztec of the City comic books issue number 4 are the keywords that if they get into the Indiegogo site, they'll be able to find it with those keywords.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've been interviewing Fernando B Rodriguez, writer, creator, and publisher, Aztec of the City. It's a comic series, Mexican-American heroes, super Chicanos, Mexicanos, all of them sort of talking about the street. But at the same time, there's messages going on that opens up the opportunities for our kids to be able to associate with and be able to dialogue about their own stories and where they fit in. And it invites future artists, future kids who are into the idea of production, writing, producing, putting together storylines. here's an opportunity to learn also from Fernando how that can be done as well, creating a greater community of these people to talk to each other regardless of borderlines, and be able to raise our consciousness and our awareness of what is possible in our communities. So Fernando, aplauso. Ladies and gentlemen, please go to the site immediately and let's support this so that it's ongoing, Fernando's work and the community at large. So muchas gracias, Fernando.
Muchísimas gracias a usted, Armando. Thank you very much.
Okay. Adios. Hasta la próxima. And we'll follow up where we are, and we look forward to having shows for the 5th, 6th, 20th, 30th, 40th edition.
All right. Yeah, thank you. That would be awesome.
Andale pues, Fernando. Adios.
Adios.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Armando F. Sanchez. I'm the CEO, Armando F. Sanchez Production. If you have any questions about today's program, please contact me also at lsacnational@hotmail.com. You can find me in most of the social medias, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. Armando F. Sanchez. I look forward to hearing from you. And let's support Fernando's work, because he's not only supporting him, but we're supporting the community of people that want to grow in the area of art, in the area of comic, in the area of production, which eventually can go into movies and TV shows, which will impact our community. Again, we want to thank you for being on the program, Fernando, and all the group and all your hard workers. You guys are spearheading something new, and it's hard work, but you guys are still at it. Sí se puede. Adiós.
Así es.